Welcome to Alpha Marketing, your go-to resource for unlocking the full potential of your small to medium-sized business. Hosted by Aaron Shishilla, CEO of Wolfpack Advising. Now, let's learn how to dominate your market.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Alpha Marketing. Today we're diving into a topic that's crucial for any local business looking to stand out: Google local service ads. If you're looking to attract more customers, more local customers, and you're looking to dominate your market, this is the episode you want to pay attention to. So I'm going to first break down what we're going to cover, but at the end of this, you're going to be able to achieve scalable growth with Google local service ads. You just need to listen and act on everything in this podcast. I'm going to lay it all out, make it very clear, and you'll know exactly how you need to set up your Google local service ad account in order to maximize the return on ad spend you're getting. I even have companies all the time we're working with that are getting easily 10x the amount of what their ad spend actually is. So what are we going to cover? Well, first I'm going to give a little bit of a topic introduction, talk about what Google local service ads is, break it fully down so you understand the different nuances of Google ads and how it plays a role in terms of advertising. Then we're going to break into why it's so essential, why you have to be on it, and the importance of it. And then we're actually going to get into some practical applications, how you need to set it up, how you need to optimize it, and then break down some common pitfalls that I see so often with companies looking with or starting Google local service ads. I'll finally end off with some success stories I've had as well, and we'll just conclude it out. So anyway, if you're ready to get started, let's jump into it. Well, with Google local service ads, it's often abbreviated as LSAs or just local service ads. It's a pay-per-lead model. It's a pay-per-lead platform designed specifically for local area, service area businesses. Sometimes it can be actually a retail store as well. They appear at the very top of Google search results, even above traditional ads like Google search ads that you might be used to. It's also above all of the organic listings, of course, because it's a paid model. This makes it a prime way to connect with customers who are ready to buy instantly. You're at the top of search results above anything else, and you have a nice little badge about it, which we'll talk about too. So Google local service ads is actually a subset of Google ads. There's so much confusion when I talk to people about Google ads because there's so many different subsets of Google ads. You know, everybody thinks of Google ads, they're thinking of Google search ads or Google AdWords, what it was previously called. But there's Google ads, and Google ads has so many different networks. It has the Google Display Network. It has YouTube ads. It has Google search ads. And now there are Google local service ads. Google local service ads is actually broken down further too. There's two different types of Google local service ads. There's Google Guaranteed, and then there's also Google Screened. Google Guaranteed is actually where a company goes through a certain certification and verification process where the company, Google, will actually back up the work of the particular company or the business that you're looking to hire. So if this is in the case of, let's say, a home inspector, in the most common case that Wolfpack works with, if it's a home inspector, Google will pay out the value of that home inspection to the consumer if they're unhappy with the work. Now, I've never actually seen that actually happen, but it's supposedly there. Now, versus Google Screened is a little bit different because they're just screening particular professionals to make sure all their verifications are in place, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Google is going to back up their work or guarantees their work. So with Google Screened, it's usually for industries that they can't back up the work for, such as like a real estate agent. A real estate agent would be nearly impossible to kind of back up or guarantee the work of compared to such as like a plumber or a home inspector. So now that we understand how Google local service ads plays in this role, or local service ads plays in the role of Google ads in general, let's dive a little bit further. So Google local service ads was first introduced into 2019, and specifically, as I mentioned, it's a pay-per-lead model. Usually with advertising, like with Facebook or Instagram, you pay for the amount of impressions or the reach, and a lot of times you could pay for the clicks that you receive. Well, in this case, we're paying per lead, and you can actually dispute the leads to get your money back, which is super beneficial. No other real platform has done this to the excess or success that Google Local Service Ads has done, because they have really good ways to screen calls to ensure they're quality leads and they actually match up to the proper job types, which we'll get into. But they actually do credit you a substantial amount of money if they're giving you, quote unquote, like bad leads or invalid leads is what they call it. So when it was first introduced in 2019, it had a slow growth, slow rollout. It wasn't that popular, that big, and they needed a certain number of companies to advertise in a particular region before they could like release it. So there was times where, they said they needed 3 different companies to join in a particular region before they could actually release it. So you could join the wait list in your region. So if you're in Central Florida or like Orlando area, you could join that particular wait list. Lo and behold, a couple years later, and now we're in 2024, where it is such a pivotal piece of your advertising strategy. Whenever we talk with companies and work with companies that are local businesses that can advertise on Google Local Service Ads, we're always recommending this as a first stepping point into advertising, because it has been just so pivotal, and the return on ad spend has been so good. So let's now talk about why they're so essential. I've mentioned so many different times, but visibility is ultimately everything, especially in this competitive market. Local service ads not only put you at the top of search results, but it also comes with that Google Guaranteed badge, which is a little green check mark. And sometimes when you're Google screened, it still shows a little green check mark that says you're Google screened. Those go a long way on Google search results, prove a lot of credibility to consumers when they're looking for businesses, compared to, if you just see all these nice, like, oh, green badges, Google guaranteed. Nobody's going to scroll past those and then click on the Google search ads that don't show that. Nobody's going to scroll past those. People do, but I'm just saying, it's just such a powerful message on Google search for you to be shown as Google guaranteed or Google screened with a nice green badge that has a green check mark on it. So it instills a lot of trust into the consumer itself. Ultimately, it is such a great platform to showcase your business right at the top. Shows that badge, adding a layer of trust that can make all the difference when potential customers are deciding who to contact. Customers are wanting things quicker and quicker. They're wanting instant satisfaction and instant gratification. With this particular tool, you are allowing customers to contact you instantly and have trust instantly that you are a licensed professional in your service area that can do the job. And if not, Google will back up the work. So I don't know about you, but I hate having to enter things multiple times or repeat myself. The same thing applies when people are looking for companies to work with. And with Google Local Service Ads, they can enter just the one information the one time, make the phone call, make the instant gratification, and schedule right then and there, which is what their goal is to do. So it provides a new kind of advertising that is instant gratification rather than clicking on a website, searching through, seeing if this is somebody reputable, seeing if they're licensed, entering the information. Maybe it gets to the company because we all know so many different websites don't actually function the way that they should. But it's also a lot easier for you to advertise. And instead of having to worry about creating your ad copy and making sure your landing page is optimized, it's basically a dumbed down version of your Google Business Profile. So if you're not familiar with your Google Business Profile, it's basically a profile on Google of your business where it has your name, your business name, contact information like your address and your phone number and your website, your office hours and your photos. But the Google Local Service Ad platform is just that. It's basically that. There's a little bit more to it, but it's a dumbed down version of your Google Business Profile. And even Google has come out to say recently, they're going to be taking content, specifically photos, from your Google Business Profile to implement on the Google Local Service Ad if you don't have photos. Now you can still add photos separately to your Local Service Ad platform, so that way it's different from your Google Business Profile, but they will pull images from your Google Business Profile. So when you get started with Google Local Service Ads, you can just Google Google Local Service Ads, and you can sign up with them pretty instantly. It's a pretty relatively simple process to get set up, and optimizing them for success, though, requires attention to detail. From completing your profile to managing your budget and gathering customer reviews, each element plays a very specific role in how well your ads perform. So it's pretty easy to get set up, but it can be complicated to make sure it's actually optimized the way that you want it. The first step is you need to get verified. Now, this totally depends on your particular industry and the type of business you're working with. Now, Google Local Service Ads only has particular industries that they will allow. They don't allow every local business under the sun. It's only particular or specific industries, and it's only in specific areas. For example, companies in Canada can't advertise with Google Local Service Ads. It's only in the United States, and it's only these specific industries. If you have questions, if your particular industry can advertise on Google Local Service Ads, check out our website, wolfpackadvising.com. We have an article that covers all the industries and then how to optimize it as well that goes along with this podcast. So first, you need to get verified. That verification process goes typically in accordance with what particular industry you're in. But let's just say, you're a typical home service company. You're going to have to submit a background check for you and your technicians, your different employees that are going out in the field. You're going to have to submit a license check to make sure that you're licensed in your state or your particular area to do the job. And then you're going to have to submit insurance verification, basically showing that you have business insurance and you're covered in case there is an issue. Now, they do have specific requirements into the amount of insurance. They've actually recently increased it. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but they did recently increase it to a particular minimum. I want to say it's like $250,000 for the minimum. But again, it depends on the industry. So just keep that in mind that it's going to depend and those things can change. So first, you need to go through that verification process. You're going to submit your license, your insurance, you're going to do the background check, and then you're going to do the other things, which are connecting your Google Business Profile, which enables the reviews. So this is another critical aspect of local service ads, is it actually shows your Google reviews. You need at least generally 5 Google reviews before you can advertise. The more reviews you have, the better performance. The higher review rating you have, the better performance as well. So make sure you have a good review request system or automation system set up, so then that way when you're actually advertising, you get a job, you can convert them into more reviews, which increases your performance on Google Local Service Ads. Once you connect your Google Business Profile, your reviews will start showing, and then you just need to add your credit card information and set your budget. That's it, but there are a few other things we need to get into. So when you actually go to set up your profile, there's going to be a profile and budget section. You need to make sure the first top half, which is just about your profile, the generic information such as your name and your description, is right, but you also need to make sure that you add your unique selling points, which are a couple options in terms of usually you can add up to 6 different options to show what makes your business different. This is things like women-owned, minority-owned, credited by the Better Business Bureau, or veteran-owned. Maybe you have certain sales going on, you can add those. They're different, basically unique selling points that you can add, but they're preset by Google Local Service Ads. Make sure you add those because it just adds another layer to your platform. After that, you can also attribute what's important called job types. Job types is the most critical aspect when it comes to optimizing Google Local Service Ads. The job types there are basically the different types of jobs you can advertise for under that particular industry you're under. So in the case of, let's just say, a home inspector, you don't just do home inspections. There are tons of different types of home inspections or ancillary inspections you could do, such as water testing. Some home inspectors offer commercial. Some offer warranty inspections. Some offer new construction inspections. The list goes on. So just make sure that you enable some of these job types and disable the ones you actually can't do. When it comes to the actual setting of these job types, this is the most common pitfall that I see, is you turn on all of them because you're like, hey, I can do all of them, which is great. You might be able to do all of them. But in the case of, let's say, a home inspection company, if you're selecting the mold inspection one, 9 times out of 10, these people have a mold issue. They don't necessarily just need mold testing. They'll want mold testing, but they want mold remediation too. And in the space of mold inspections, the cost is actually significantly higher compared to just a home inspection or a water testing. So you need to really understand, not necessarily like, hey, I can do a mold inspection or I can do a mold test, but you need to understand the type of consumer that is searching for it, what the particular needs are, and who they're actually looking for, because some of those Google hasn't really nailed down yet. So by default, you can enable all of them, see how it goes, but you need to take notes on every single lead that you're receiving and understand why you were able to quote something and why you weren't, why it wasn't a good lead. Because if you try and dispute something that was technically a mold inspection that you didn't want to take because they needed remediation and all this other stuff that you're not willing to do, Google's not going to credit you on that particular account. So make sure that you're really paying attention to those job types and you're really paying attention to those calls and you're taking notes on the calls to be able to optimize those job types further, because you're going to set them once, but you need to update them about almost every month until you really get them dialed in. So this brings up another point when it comes to the advertising, which is when you're setting up your profile, you're going to set your budget. There are 2 ways currently in order to basically bid on jobs. You can do an automatic bid or you could do a manual bid. A manual bid is, you could say, a max cost per lead that you're willing to spend. An automatic bid is you're leaving it up to Google to decide what you want to spend. Now, in this case, the automatic bidding is just an entire auction. So that's all advertising is. As more people advertise, prices go up, right? So if you select automatic bidding, you're saying, hey, I want the most leads I can get for this amount of budget. This is what I have. And Google will try and optimize for that and bid competitively when they can. But if there's so many people advertising, the price is going to continue to go up, and that's not going to be able to control it. Manual bidding, you can say, hey, I don't want to pay more than $40 per lead, and I don't want to go over that. And that's fine if you are very comfortable with the amount of money you're willing to spend per lead. Some companies are very comfortable and know their number. However, this is something you really need to pay attention to, because sometimes companies will go in there and they say, well, I want so many leads and I'm willing to spend $100 per lead on this, and that's okay with me. But then they go to find out about a month or 2 later, they're not getting any business. And the platform's still a little bit wonky, so you need to be monitoring how you're testing your bidding strategy, because more often than not, automatic bidding is going to be 100% the way to go. 100%, at least right now. Things can change, so you need to make sure. I would set it at automatic bidding, see how it goes. If you're really like, hey, I don't want to go over the certain amount, which is, $40, $50, whatever it is, then set that amount, but monitor it every single month and have that as a variable for a test. Now, getting into the last couple things with your Google Local Service Ad profile, the last couple things are your service area, and then the phone number, the tracking, as well as your office hours, message leads, and direct business search. So the service area is super important. You want to make sure that you're adding your service areas appropriately for the areas that you can particularly do the job. Now, this is where the job is actually located. This is not where consumers are actually searching from. However, Google's going to try and find people in your local area. But keep in mind, if you're a service area business, depending how it goes, people could be out of that service area. And it does happen. So make sure you set your service area right. I typically like to go by county. I do not like to go by zip code. I do not like to go by city. It's just way too much, way too cumbersome. A county is usually better. If you can go by DMA regions, such as the Central Florida market or South Florida market. I'm in Florida if you can't tell. Those make it easy too. Add exclusions if you need to, like you don't cover a certain city or certain county, or you don't like to go a particular area. You can add those as exclusions. The office hours are also important because this comes to our second most common pitfall. First was the job types. This is the second most common pitfall, which is the office hours and how you're accepting those leads. The office hours are not there to just be like, when are you going to show ads? Oh, I want to show ads 24/7. That is not what it's about. It is about when are you going to have somebody available to answer the phone and answer message leads. You need to be quick about it. You have to be quick about it. I've seen larger companies have long queues and people drop off. And that hurts your performance of your Google local service ad. So don't do that. Monitor it if you do have some type of queue or anything like that. See what the drop off is, because the longer you take to get to leads, or if you miss a lead, then the lower your performance goes and the less your ad will show. As I mentioned, going back to the very beginning of this is all about instant gratification, getting trust and getting the job done for the consumer. So we want to make sure we can pick up the phone pretty instantly, or we can answer those message leads pretty instantly. So make sure when you set your office hours, it's for actually when somebody's going to be available to pick up the phone. If that's you, great. Don't set it 24 hours because you need to sleep. But if that's somebody else, cool too. Now, going into the additional settings here, which is the message leads I'm kind of talking about, the Google Local Service Ad platform can go through phone calls primarily, but also messages. The messages are done on the Google Local Service Ad platform. You can get email notifications for them, but they're going to be done on whether it's on the mobile app or actually on the desktop. The mobile app's typically the easiest if you're out in the field, you're doing some type of job, but if your office team is going to be able to respond to those, they can do it on the desktop platform or on the web. Message leads, only enable those if you can respond to message leads pretty quickly. Again, these are going to be a lot of people that are looking for instant gratification, and you have to think about that. Think about the end consumer in order to get the job done. So if you can't respond quickly, do not enable it. But if you're having an issue with you need more leads or you need more leads at a lower cost, message leads are a good avenue for you to implement in order to get more leads, especially at a lower cost, because not as many people are willing to turn on message leads. The final setting that I want to talk about is the direct business search. Direct business search is a new setting with Google Local Service Ads. This is enabled by default, but it basically says that, hey, if somebody's searching for your particular brand name, then you want to appear and advertise for that. If you do, you'll show up always first because it is your brand name. I typically recommend enabling this and just leaving it alone because you always want to show for your particular brand name. There is, in the larger space, especially in software companies, there's a lot of competition for, if somebody's searching for one particular software, the competitor software is always trying to advertise for that. So you always need to advertise heavily for your own brand name if you're a big software company. Now, this is starting to get implemented with local service businesses to where it's generally recommended you want to advertise for your own brand name so you show at the top. It's generally going to be lower cost. So keep that in mind, but I generally do recommend to enable that. Otherwise, you're going to see the other companies or consumers that are searching for your brand, they're going to see that nice Google Guaranteed badge or Google Screen badge for your competitors. And I'm assuming you don't want that. So enable that direct business search. Now, by far the most common pitfall that I see when it comes to Google Local Service Ads is the top of impression rate. So Google Local Service Ads doesn't show a lot of heavy metrics. They show basically the number of ad impressions you have for a given month, the number of leads. They used to show the cost per lead, but they took that away. So you still need to manually calculate that by taking the total cost that you spent and divide that by the number of leads. But they also enable the absolute top of impression rate right now. And that absolute top of impression rate is how often you appear in the number one position on Google search results. Your goal is to get that above 50% as much as possible. The way that you do that primarily is going to be through answering the phone quickly and responding to messages quickly. There's a couple other things that go about it too, and there is some chatter that it actually can be from your SEO work too, that your Google business profile needs to be optimized. You need to have Google reviews. You need to be responding to reviews and doing all those things. So don't negate all of that other stuff, make sure you're still abiding by best metrics when it comes to local search engine optimization. We have tons of articles on our website about that, so check into that, because there's no confirmed report in terms of like what Google is telling us and how that number is impacted. It's probably a combination of that. It's definitely impacted largely by your response rate and response time. And then it's also impacted by your profile optimization. Do you have professional photos? Are consumers actually clicking on your ad compared to other people, right? Is your profile does it look ugly? If it looks ugly, consumers aren't going to click on it, then Google doesn't want to show it because they're not going to get a lead or money out of that one. But if they have company B over here that has beautiful photos and everything looks amazing, then they're definitely going to show that type of content, or definitely going to show that type of advertisement. So just make sure that you're responding to your reviews, you're doing all those basic local SEO things, you have a good rating, you're adding that automated review things, everything that I've kind of talked about thus far. So finally, to end on a success story, when any company is kind of advertising with Google Ads, it can be really daunting and really tough. They don't necessarily understand how to do it if they're doing it right. Well, here's an easy way to go about it. Basically, start implementing Google Local Service Ads. Take one step at a time, just start doing it. But the important thing is tracking. So track every single lead that you get from Google Local Service Ads. Google makes it easy in this. They show you every lead on the platform, and they show you even the recording. So just take out a Google Sheet or like an Excel file, anything like that. Record all the leads you received in a given month. Put down what was quotable and what's not. A quotable lead is anything that's a job you can do and in your service area. If it meets those two things, it's quotable. It's not quotable if it's not for a job you offer or they're out of service area. Basically, you can't give them a quote. The goal is to have 100% quotable leads. That means you're getting 100% good leads. You can give them a quote. If you have that, great. Your targeting is good. Your optimization of the advertisement is good. You're getting 100% quality leads. The second half of that is how are you converting them, which is the biggest pitfall and the largest issue when it comes to the advertising. So when you have your Google Sheet set out, you're going to track your leads. You're going to track if they're quotable. You're going to put in that quote value. That quote value is very important. What the value is you gave them for a quote of the job. Let's say it's $500, whatever it is. And then you're going to have a column for sales value. That sales value is if you booked the job, what you actually booked it for. It could be the same as a quotable. More likely than not is the same. That's the goal. And then a notes section. The notes section is going to be critical because that is going to tell me, hey, for those that have quoted but didn't get to sales, why? And I'm going to put my notes down about that. For those that weren't quotable, meaning I could not give them a quote about the job, why? And I'm going to put notes about that. It's going to take a lot of work for you to actually listen to these calls and understand. But what we're looking for is to utilize this information to identify trends and what optimizations we can make to the advertisements. If you don't do this, we can't close the feedback loop to optimize the ad. So if you're not doing this, you can advertise all you want, but your return on investment is going to be your return on investment. You're not going to be able to make them any better. So take out this Google Sheet. You're going to show the leads, you're going to show the quote values, you're going to show the sales values, and you're going to have your notes. More likely than not, what you're going to see is that we could be doing a much better job answering the phone, responding to these message leads, and have some type of follow-up process to close these leads. The targeting is the easy part. That's the easy part because you can know, hey, turn off this job type, turn this one on. Hey, I need to add some more cool photos. These don't look that great, right? They don't look that professional. Hey, why am I advertising 24/7? I'm going to sleep at 9 p.m., right? And I missed that lead that was at 12 a.m. that called in or messaged in. Those pieces are the easy part. But when it comes to the office, when it comes to answering the phones, responding to the message leads, this is where we need to create some type of follow-up process, and we need to record how well we are at closing these calls. These are all opportunities for leads, And these are people that have options for calling tons of different companies. So this is where the work comes in to show what's unique about your particular business, why they should trust you over another. And yeah, it does come into price. Price is definitely a factor. Not for everybody, but price is definitely a factor. You need to offer a really good job. You need to offer a really good selling point for a good price. It needs to be a fair price. I'm not saying it needs to be super cheap, but it needs to be a fair price. So ultimately, at the end here, when you're looking at the end of the month, we want to see at least a close rate of 25% at a minimum. Meaning for every call you receive that's quotable, you should be able to convert at least 25% of those. For, let's say, if you got 4, you should be able to convert 1. So if you quoted 4 calls for $500, that's $2,000. That means you closed $500, one job. That's at a minimum. The best that we've seen is closer to 50% or 50%, depending on the number. As the more leads come in, that ratio is kind of even out. The average is about 33% is what you should shoot for. So every third phone call that you get, that's a quotable lead you should be able to quote. That should be the goal there. But if you don't do everything that I mentioned at the beginning, and you don't avoid those common pitfalls, and you don't actually track and take the notes about what's happening with the calls, you're not going to be able to fulfill that feedback loop, and your close rate, you're not going to know what it is and how to improve it, which is by far the biggest mistake. So that's it for today's episode. That's the easiest way to get your 10x return on investment for Google local service ads and to truly maximize and scale your business through advertising. If you're a local business, this is the way to do it. This is your time right now. If you're listening to this podcast, this is your time right now and your chance to take Google local service ads by the horns, track it, make sure you optimize it, improve your office, improve your selling, improve your close rate, optimize what's in the actual profile, add cool professional photos, all that good stuff, and actually scale your business. Next year, who knows? Something may come out, and maybe 5 years from now, Bing is probably going to come along and have their own version of Google local service ads as well, called Bing local service ads, and this may be the new norm. So jump on this today. Let me know how it goes. Leave me a comment or send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Alpha Marketing. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other business owners and marketers. Your support enables us to continue bringing you actionable advice and the tools you need to thrive. Join us next time for more insights with Aaron Shishilla, and keep striving to be the alpha in your market.